Hi, I'm Veronica Wasek with 5-Minute Bookkeeping. I empower virtual bookkeeping pros to become confident professionals and business owners. In this video, I'll talk about my best tips for taking on a massive undeposited funds cleanup in QuickBooks Online. So you recently took on a QBO cleanup client and you notice that they have hundreds of old transactions in undeposited funds. Before you attempt to clean it up, let's take a look at what you need to know so you can take on this project with confidence. Number 1, all transactions must be entered in QBO. So all invoices, customer payments, deposits, all transactions need to be entered in QBO, and you need to make sure that you work through the bank feeds and make sure that everything is entered before you can continue on. And the reason we do that is we have to make sure that we're working with all transactions. Number 2, reconcile business bank and credit card accounts. So now that you have all transactions entered in QuickBooks, the next step is to do all of the business bank and credit card reconciliations. And the reason we start with reconciliations is even though we think we've entered everything in QuickBooks, the only way for us to know that we actually have entered everything is to ensure that all transactions are reconciled. Also, by doing the bank reconciliations, you'll make sure that you're working with valid transactions and that there aren't any duplicates or any transactions that don't belong on the books. Number 3, diagnose the cause of the problem. Whenever we come across cleanup solutions in QuickBooks, we have to understand the fact that we'll see a problem and generally it's a symptom of a greater problem. We have to dig deep and find the cause of the problem and then identify a cleanup solution. So let's go through a quick scenario. We have a company that provides consulting services. They invoice customers and receive payments via ACH, check, and QuickBooks payments. They enter customer payments into undeposited funds, as they normally should. But we have a problem. So whenever they go into bank deposits through the plus sign, they see that they have a lot of old, unclear transactions in undeposited funds. And as you can see from the bank deposit window, that we have various old transactions that haven't cleared out of the bank deposit window. Another symptom of the problem is that when we go into the consulting income account detail, we see that there are a lot of deposits recorded directly to income when in fact we should be seeing only invoices. So now we know we have a problem. So what is the cause of the problem? Number 1 is incorrect workflow. And the main cause of that is that deposits that are received in the bank are being entered directly to income. So what is the correct undeposited funds workflow? Because we have to know how things work correctly before we can fix them. So it starts with a customer invoice. Next, a customer payment is entered to undeposited funds, and then a deposit is recorded. That deposit will increase the bank account and it decreases undeposited funds. So when that deposit is entered correctly, it takes the balance out of undeposited funds. And then in the bank feed or in the banking transactions, we're going to match that transaction. So we saw how the correct workflow works. What about the wrong workflow? What's happening? What's causing the problem? Generally, when there is an incorrect workflow, you'll see that you'll start with a customer invoice and then a customer payment is entered to undeposited funds. So far things are working correct. But then where the workflow starts to fall apart is that income is added, or rather deposits are added directly to income from the bank feed, and that causes duplicate income. And here's a quick tip. How do we know that we have these problems? How do we begin to uncover and diagnose these problems? You will generally see that you have duplicate income as well as a growing balance in undeposited funds. So now that we understand the cause of the problem, we have to then identify the cleanup solution. So how do we fix this problem and restore things to the way that they should be? When it comes to cleaning up undeposited funds, there are two general methods that you can use. One is to fix the source transactions, and the other is what I call the dummy bank account method. The first option, to fix transactions, is the most accurate, but it's also the most time-consuming. The dummy bank account method, on the other hand, is potentially less accurate, but it is a faster method of cleaning up undeposited funds. So let's go a little bit deeper into fixing undeposited funds and the options that we have. So if we're going to fix source transactions, you have to have the source documentation, whether it's copies of checks deposited together with a deposit slip, information about the merchant payments that were received, any information related to payment processor, deposits. And so you have to have the source documentation, otherwise you can't fix the source transactions. You must also be able to correctly record all invoices, sales receipts, customer payments, and deposits. And as I said, it is the most accurate method, but also the most time consuming, because you would have to go back and ensure that all source transactions are recorded, and not only recorded, but that they also reconcile to the bank deposits. The other method that I mentioned is the dummy bank account method, and this is a quick way to clean up undeposited funds when source transactions don't exist. And most of the time those source transactions do not exist just because either anyone who's doing their own books are generally not keeping track of all of their source documentation. It is potentially less accurate, and it assumes that income was duplicated. And if you remember, I showed earlier how we saw deposits in the income account as well as invoices, and that shows us that income was duplicated. Let's go through the workflow that you would follow if you use the dummy bank account method. You would first start with setting up a dummy bank account in the chart of accounts in QuickBooks Online. Then you would make a deposit for old undeposited funds to the dummy bank account. Then you would enter an expense to an income account using the dummy bank account. And then the dummy bank account balance is a 0 due to the entries that you just made, and income is decreased. You should consider the effect of adjusting prior year undeposited funds and how it may affect prior tax returns or the reconciliation to the tax return balance sheet when implementing this method. So how do you know that you've cleaned up all of your undeposited funds? Ultimately, we're looking to ensure that there are no old balances in undeposited funds. For a tutorial on how to clean up undeposited funds and implement the dummy bank account method, look in the description below for a link to my video and the blog post that goes with it. I'm Veronica Wasek with 5-Minute Bookkeeping. Do you need a QuickBooks Online cleanup checklist? Check the description below for the link to purchase my own Colossal Cleanup Checklist. And look for the links to join my Facebook community and other resources, including my online academy for virtual bookkeepers. If this content is helping you, then subscribe, ring the bell, and give me a thumbs up. And let me know in the comments if there are any other topics you'd like me to cover in the future. I'm here to help you. I'll see you next time.